So back for another week. It's the Claret Blue View with Will Pugh. All of you are absolutely loving it this season. We had Reece Bayliss on last week, but I am delighted to say that joining us this week is a friend of mine and an absolute superstar, all-round good bloke, huge West Ham fan. It's actor sensation Dave Schaal. Most of you will know him as Jay's dad from the Inbetweeners. He was Glyn Taffy, of course, in The Office. Credits from Casualty, Silent Witness, Ashes to Ashes, Doc Martin, even one of my all-time favourite shows. It's David Schaal. Dave, it's so great to have you on the podcast with us. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you getting on? We'll ask you, of course, about West Ham, but how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I can see you've been reading my Wikipedia page because some of those some of those credits are very old. I've done a lot of more recent stuff than that. But yeah, no, it's great to be here, and I know you from our away game in Seville, don't I? That's
absolutely. I mean, what a West Ham journey it's been since then. Yeah, it was Seville away, wasn't it? What a game that was. I think you bumped into one of my colleagues, Mike, and we ended up having a right old evening of it afterwards, didn't we? And stayed in touch ever since. But what a night that was.
Not only did we have a right old evening, you and Mike literally physically wouldn't let me out the bar that we were in. I was physically prevented from leaving. So I got back to my hotel room about 4 a.m.
I would like to plead not guilty, but I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I think my dad, to be quite honest, was a little bit stunned. Nearly 60 years old, my dad is. I think he was a little bit surprised to find himself in a Sevilla nightclub at 3:30 in the morning. I don't think he's had as many late nights since. But let's get straight into that, Dave. What a night that was. I mean, even though we drew, the European adventures have been phenomenal, haven't they?
Yeah, I thought we lost that game. Didn't we lose that 1-0 over there?
It was a defeat. We should have drawn, shouldn't we?
Yeah, but we played really well. I think En-Nesyri scored, didn't he? The guy we've been after ever since, basically. But then we turned them over 2-0 at our place. I think it was Yarmolenko scored the winner.
That's it. Yeah.
So I mean, that whole Europa League was fantastic for me because I managed to get to Seville, managed to get to Lyon for the 3-0 win, and then Frankfurt. Yeah, I was there. I was at the away game in Frankfurt, which was a whole deal in itself. Getting into that crowd was like something I'll never forget.
It was crazy, wasn't it? I mean, obviously, but it was such a surreal experience for everyone, wasn't it? And like I say, we obviously met in Seville, and that general sense of camaraderie among West Ham fans and how much everyone was enjoying it. The fact that we were playing well as well, but there was you had some comments before about our West Ham fans in Europe. It's going to be a bit dodgy, but it was just one big party atmosphere, wasn't it? That's how we were brought together.
Yeah, but, I mean, I didn't see.
Just carried on.
In fact, if there was any trouble, it was coming from the opposition, not from West Ham fans. Because I remember Eintracht Frankfurt were playing Real Betis in Spain at the same time we were playing Seville. Actually, in Seville, they were as well, and they attacked a load of West Ham fans. Yeah. Oh, you went to the Real Betis game? Of course you did. Yeah. So they attacked all our fans in a bar afterwards, and as far as I could tell, we were very well behaved, and I never saw a scrap of trouble in any of those games from West Ham supporters.
No. Well, look, Dave, I mean, we linked up in Lyon and Frankfurt as well, like you mentioned there. And what memories they are. There's some photos still on my phone. I was flicking through them, in the build-up to having a chat with you again. It's just everyone's just smiling from ear to ear, just like enjoying the journey so much. What are your main memories sort of looking back to all that European journey? And then last season as well, of course.
Well, my main memories really are Seville because I went out there a week before the game because I'd heard what an amazing city it is. I know I used to take little holidays. So I went out there and was like, hanging out in Seville in that park there, with all the orange trees which was amazing. I mean, what was it called? The Santa Maria Park or something.
Yeah.
And then a mate of mine texted me and he said, "Where you are sitting now is exactly where I proposed to my missus." So suddenly all these people came out of the woodwork telling me how amazing Seville was and how much they loved it. And they'd all been there. And then, of course, the 3-0 win in Lyon really stays in my mind because I think that's the best we played in
That's
Europe.
the best West Ham game of my life, I think.
Yeah. And, of course, Paquetá was playing for Lyon, which made it even more incredible that we turned them over like that. But they, you know, and another thing I really remember is the away fans. You know, sorry, the home fans at their grounds made so much noise. I was impressed by all the support. Actually, the Lyon fans, even though they got a bit narky at the end of the game, I thought the level of support was extraordinary, and the noise they made. And then in Frankfurt, that big wall of colour and, you know, those
the fireworks and all that.
I think they'd rehearsed all the fireworks, hadn't they?
Yeah.
And it was, you know, because I very rarely go to away games, to be honest. So I just see the West Ham home fans, and we've got a great atmosphere. But to go away and see that level of support was quite mind blowing, actually. So those are my, you know, and the semi in Frankfurt, Cresswell getting sent off, and it was a bit of an anticlimax, to be honest, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a shame it all came to an end like that. To be quite honest, I think my bank balance was pretty pleased that we went out in the end. Although I'd have absolutely loved to have got to the final, there was a bit of me thinking, I don't know, I'm obviously going to have to go to the final if we get there. I don't know how I'm going to afford it because I'm cleaning myself out here.
I know. I can't. Where was the final that year? I can't even remember.
That was back at Seville, wasn't it? They played.
Oh, it was in Seville. That's right.
The same stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because what people did was they booked the hotel before the Frankfurt game, so you have to book in advance and take a gamble, don't you? But I'm the same. I didn't do that. I had plans that if we made it, I was going to get there via, you know, Cadiz or something like that. You know, come in from the south and avoid all the traffic. But and I never made it to Prague last year because I was working. I was making Bermondsey Tales. So I did watch it at the ground though with my brother and a couple of mates. So that was fun. That was great fun.
Incredible. I remember I remember actually, it's funny you say that about Seville. Like, obviously me and Dad went out there. I think we did 5 days. We thought, I've never been to Seville before. It's supposed to be a nice city. And that, trust me, Mum took some persuading for when Dad said he was going. And we're going for a game on the Thursday night, and we're leaving on Monday and coming back on Saturday, whatever it was. And so we're thinking, we're sort of not taking a mick, but we're living it up a bit. We've got away with one here. That's what my dad was thinking. Bump into you. You're there for about 6 weeks.
Well, I was there for just under a week, and I thought, you know, it's such a beautiful place. I was so delighted when I realised that we'd drawn Seville, because I thought it's one of those cities I'd always like to go to. And I hear it's really hot in the summer. So when we went, what was it, April, I think?
I think it was. Yeah,
it was kind of like perfect temperature, really. It wasn't too hot.
Yeah. Well, look, Dave, I've sort of you've called me out within 4 seconds of being on of having a quick look at your Wikipedia. I did. I, of course, known you for your face is very, very recognisable, as is your voice. You've done some work with West Ham more recently as well. You've got a couple of movies coming out, which we'll have a chat about a little bit later on, but just give people a sort of rough synopsis as best you can of sort of your life and your career. We'll get into it in a little bit more detail later on. I want to talk to you about your West Ham journey first, but just so people have got an idea, you've had a very different life to the vast majority of us. I've had the pleasure of sitting down for long periods of time over several beers, in fact, and having a chat and listening to all your stories, but give people a sort of rough idea if they perhaps don't know and they've been living under a rock who you are.
Well, so I'm, as you said at the beginning of the program, I'm best known for being a comedy actor, really. In the Inbetweeners and The Office, but that happened by accident. You know what I mean? I never set out to be a comedian. I just went to drama school, trained as an actor, and then, tried to get work. And I originally grew up in Stevenage, which is where we settled. But my family travelled all around the world because my dad was in the American Air Force. So, you know, I was born in the States, which people are kind of mind blown about because I seem like the most unlikely American or half American. You know, I was actually born in Albuquerque, home of Breaking Bad. So when that series was first on, I was really intrigued to watch it because it featured Albuquerque, and I was thinking, I've got to get there at some point. I've never been back to Albuquerque, but I was born there, and then my dad kept moving because he was in the American Air Force. So he kept getting stationed all over America, and then in 1969 we got stationed in Biloxi, Mississippi, and we went through what is still the second most powerful hurricane in American history. And it wiped out the town of Biloxi, Mississippi. It's second only to Katrina in its velocity, you know.
Really?
Over 100-mile-an-hour winds. We were actually living in a trailer park at the time, and the Air Force ordered my dad to go and take us to these shelters, these hurricane shelters. They were these like big cube buildings. And they never knew, we were like guinea pigs. They never knew whether these hurricane shelters were going to be strong enough. So luckily they were. Although I do remember at one point the roof was leaking, and there was a bit of drama going on there. And then next day we went back to the trailer park where we were living, and every single trailer, apart from two, got turned over, and ours was one of the two that didn't get turned over.
Jesus.
And I mean, it was incredible. And you walk around Biloxi afterwards, and there was like destruction. You know, it was a brand new amusement park that had been destroyed. There was a dead cow on the beach that had been swept from farmland right to the beach.
Really?
So, so I kind of remember that.
Harrowing.
And then my mum's family were all from Essex. So that's how come I came to be a West Ham supporter. Because
whereabouts?
In South Ockenden.
Oh, right. Yeah. Just outside Brentwood,
I mean, ironically, the guy I sit next to, Dean, who I think you might have met in Frankfurt, he actually lives in South Ockenden.
All right.
Which is a weird coincidence. But yeah, so we kind of flitted all over all around the place, and then we finally settled in Stevenage in Hertfordshire, where I was surrounded by Tottenham and Arsenal fans, which was a bloody nightmare. And I grew up a punk rocker, got into punk, and all these skinheads were all Tottenham fans. Yeah. And so if I'd have gone to West Ham at that time, I wouldn't have made it back alive. So I was forced to go to Tottenham and keep my gob shut about West Ham. I know it's a real bad admission that, and I would never really admit that in public. But my granddad was a Tottenham fan, so I went there when they were in the second division and Glenn Hoddle was playing for him. So at least I saw some halfway decent football with Glenn Hoddle playing. And then as soon as, but I got taken to West Ham by my uncle. My first ever game was a 1-1 draw at home to Leicester. I remember Graham Padden scored.
Yeah. What year was this?
This was 1973, I think.
Blimey. Yeah. With Leicester City,
Yeah, Leicester City 1-1 draw. So it's
I'll be honest, Dave. If someone had said to me, having had the pleasure, as I've said, of meeting you a few times now, if someone had said to me without having heard your story, this bloke is either from Stevenage or New Mexico, which one do you think it is? I may have opted for Stevenage, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm half American, really. And I have been to LA and stayed with relatives over there to try and get some acting work. But I'm so English now. It's ridiculous to even try and claim I'm half American. I'd never support America in anything. Not the Ryder Cup, not the World Cup, nothing. I always want England to beat them. So I've never had much partisanship towards the US, to be honest.
No, quite. Very much an Englishman. But so look, Dave, you mentioned it there about your mum's family being from Essex. So what was that like then? How did your West Ham journey, if you like, how did that come about? Was it like I always call it with my West Ham supporting, is a hereditary condition passed on?
It is an hereditary condition. I had no choice in it. All my uncles, but weirdly, apart from my granddad, but all my relatives, were all West Ham supporters. Me and my two brothers became ardent fans. And I remember my cousin Paul Carter, his name is, we used to play football with him, and you know, I'd always be Bobby Moore, and you know, he'd always be Jeff Hurst, and you know, take penalties and things like that. I just, you know, from as early an age as I can remember, I just remember supporting West Ham. You know, I think I even watched us play Stoke in the League Cup final in the 70s. I remember that. No, sorry, semi-final, wasn't it? We lost, and Stoke then played Chelsea in the final. So whatever year that was, but I remember us getting to the semi-final, and then of course Jeff Hurst got transferred to Stoke, and I remember feeling absolutely gutted about that because they'd knocked us out of the League Cup, you know. But I was too young to remember the 60s trophies. So my earliest memory of us winning a trophy was against Fulham.
75, So you're 60 now, Dave, is that right?
Yeah, just turned 60. Yeah.
See, some of the things on your Wikipedia are accurate.
The only good thing about turning 60 is getting that Oyster card. So you get free London travel now. That's literally the only good thing about hitting 60.
But so what did supporting West Ham look like for you in your sort of early years? Then I guess it didn't involve going to many matches if you were dotting about all over the place. Yeah,
my dad being American, he never wanted to take us. So you know, I will admit that I watched us from afar. Actually, do you know what? I think I've got that date wrong. I think it's 76 was my earliest game, not 73.
Right.
I think that I've just been running it through I think it's actually 1976, that game. So my uncle took me there, and that was the first time I ever went to watch West Ham. You know, and I was getting on a bit then as well. I was, you know,
well, you're 16 or whatever then,
yeah, well, maybe 14, I think, because it was 14, 15. It was just before we went. Then we emigrated to America. And then, when we came back from America, I went to a different school in Stevenage, and then I eventually found my way to drama school. And as soon as I set foot in London, I started going regularly to West Ham.
Sure.
You know, I went a lot more regularly than I you know thought I was going to be able to. So I was a season ticket holder for a couple of seasons at Upton Park as well.
But, I've got our games against Leicester City up here, Dave. Did you say it was 1-1? You reckon we had a?
Yeah, I think it was. I'm sure Graham Padden scored.
Yeah, we had a 1-1 in 1973, which was Brian Robson and Frank Worthington scored. We had another 1-1 at home to Leicester in January 1976 when Alan Taylor and Bob Lee scored.
That was it. It was that. It must have been Alan Taylor who scored, because I think. Do you know what it is? I think Graham Padden was injured.
Right,
he was injured. So that that January game, I think, was my first ever trip to West Ham.
Mervyn Day, John McDowell, Kevin Locke, Tommy Taylor, Frank Lampard Sr., Trevor Brooking, Alan Kirbyshire, Pat Holland, Clyde Best, Billy Jennings, Alan Taylor was our starting 11.
That's the team. Because you know why Graham Padden's in my head? Because my uncle knew some of the stewards, and they came round and they went, Padden's injured. So that's why I've just remembered now. That's why it's good. Yeah, so that was my first ever game.
Just stuck in your head. So when did you? Was that when you started? You know, obviously you're a regular match goer now. You got a season ticket, go to all the home games, get to the away ones when you can. As we've mentioned, is that around the time that you started becoming a regular sort of match goer, or did that come a bit later?
Well, that came later because my cousin or my uncle took me. Uncle John, his name was, and he took me there, and then we emigrated to America. My dad and his visit. Yeah, we went back to America and lasted over there for about 9 months, and then came back to England. So because I lived in Stevenage, I wasn't able to get to West Ham really. Sure. And during some of that time, I did take in some Tottenham games. I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah, stop saying it, Dave.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to shut up now. And then I started going more regularly a few years later when I moved down to London. That's when I really started supporting physically West Ham. You know.
Yeah. So you'd have been there sort of the 80s, 85, 86, and then all that sort of stuff.
Starting from 1985, I went fairly regularly. I mean, I was at drama school, but I still managed to go quite a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we got hammered quite a few times by the great Man United team and the great Liverpool team at that time as well. I remember a game where we lost 5-2 at home to Liverpool. I think Ian Rush banged in a couple. I think John Aldrich scored. That all-conquering Liverpool team, basically. But I had a season to get in the Bobby Moore upper tier, and then I was on the North Bank for quite a lot of it as well. And then I've started around the ground in various parts throughout the years.
What's it been like then historically for you, balancing supporting West Ham with actors' work? Because it's very far from 9 to 5 stuff. Has it been easy, or does it make it easier or more difficult? Balancing your work and West Ham.
Well, it is difficult because I keep getting asked to work at weekends, and
Sorry guys, I'd like to, but we're at home to Sheffield United this week.
Yeah, my agent knows that she's got to work my any contract. She's got to try and work it around West Ham dates, And I sometimes do teaching at a drama school as well. And the first thing they do is check West Ham's home games because they know, now we got Europe as well. So that's because sometimes they ask me to work Thursday evenings, and I'm like, check the fixtures before I agree to anything.
Of course.
So I'm probably more ardent now than I ever have been, which is kind of ironic, really, isn't it? But I sort of feel like I'm making up for lost time in the early 70s when I should have been going. But at least now I'm going. We're successful, But I'm not a glory hunter. I did support us all through the rough times as well. But,
it seems mental, doesn't it, that people. Like if people start supporting West Ham around this era, there's a potential they'll be labelled glory hunters.
I know.
The first West Ham supporters since like the 60s, basically, who could be called that.
I know. It's hilarious, isn't it? The fact that we're doing so well, and still people go, "Oh, I want Moyes out," and it's like, hang on a minute, we've got the most successful team since the 60s, basically.
Tell me about it, Dave. Look, I mean, you're basically doing the links for me, which is sensational. We'll move on. No, I'm more than happy, Dave. But we'll move on to that now. Now, I've had a bit of, the Claret Blue View is a new segment we're doing this season. It's been taken to really well so far. Listeners are loving it. I'm loving doing it. And the one sort of question that it almost annoys me that I have to ask it, or I feel I have to ask it, is on David Moyes. And I'm sort of sitting there and I'm asking people. We had Reece Bayliss on last week, the front man for WHU Legends 11 Prince. And, I'm talking to him and he's sort of explaining to me why he would have got rid of Moyes at the end of last season. And it just baffles me to even ask it to people because I'm so staunchly Moyes in. I did waver on that last January. It was after we lost to Wolves. I thought, okay, a change needs to be made now. But last season was so sensational. We started this season really well. And it annoys me that I even have to ask. But I am asking it through just, I don't know, consistency reasons. And I hope there's a time sooner rather than later where fans don't want to hear the debate anymore, that it's not even a debate. Because I think if we carry on like we have started this season, those people who wanted Moyes out hard last year will look a little bit silly. But talk me through your opinions on David Moyes. I know you like an argument on social media with a few people about it. So put across your point with as much fervour as you do online.
Well, I do nothing but argue in favour of David Moyes, and I have to say I have not wavered since he's been in charge the second time. In fact, I don't think he should have got fired the first time when Pellegrini came in. But anyway, I've been a massive supporter of his because he's a pragmatic manager. And okay, it's not the West Ham way. We're not knocking the ball around and getting stuff 5-0. But at least we've been playing attacking football. He started with a defence, so we're doing that low block. We're doing the counter-attacking style, and And my only criticism is that we haven't got a proper striker. You know, Antonio is a converted striker. God bless him. My God, he's been great this season, actually, except against Liverpool, where he missed an absolute stinker. That header, I mean, my God. But that
especially after we've been giving it big ones on social media, on his podcast before. We're going to do Liverpool. We'll finish above them. I fancy myself up there, honestly.
Mate, if you're going to say that on a podcast, you've got to score. You've got to score. You know, and Alisson made a great save from Souček as well. We should have been 2-0 up before that penalty. You know, but anyway, apart from that, and we've got rid of Haller and Skamaka now, who I thought were both promising strikers. So that is my only reservation about Moisey, that he doesn't seem to be able to get the best out of these strikers. You know, and Haller went back to Germany and started banging them in, didn't he? So,
smashed out, didn't he? Ajax and then Borussia Dortmund,
Oh yeah, it was Ajax first, wasn't it? Yeah. But so that's my only reservation. But look at the team we've got now. You know, I mean, I know Paquetá would have left if he hadn't been embroiled in that betting scandal, but him alongside Kudus and Bowen's on fire, and he's, you know. Wasn't sure if I was allowed to say it on your podcast.
But, we try and go PG. Sometimes we do roam into 12A. So
okay, all right, I'll keep it clean then. Well, but I mean, we've got just the Alvarez has been such a great replacement for Rice, who I noticed got substituted yesterday. I did have a wry smile where he's
we all grinned, didn't we?
Shaking his head as Jorginho gets roasted for the Tottenham goal. I thought that was hilarious. But we've got the best team since Payet was here, actually. Definitely. And all my Liverpool mates are very objective about it. They said you played amazing football in the first half, and when you go forward, you look the real deal. So I think now that we've got the players, we can progress on from that kind of parking the bus, counter-attacking style, and actually start attacking, because we have got the players now. But I do think Moyes wants to do that. I just think he hasn't had the players. You know, there's no point attacking Man City and getting stuff 5-6-0. You know, you gotta be pragmatic. And we played exactly the same way in Europe, and we beat Lyon 3-0. You know. I think we're unbeaten in Europe, aren't we? Apart from
16 matches it's a phenomenal record. Yeah.
So if we're beaten and people are going, but a lot of those teams are rubbish. Well, Alkmaar are now top of the Dutch league. Yeah. You know, we knocked them out last season. So I think, I just think that if we get, more and more cultured players in, then we can play that more attacking style. So whenever people go, it's boring to watch, it's like, well, we won our first European trophy since the 60s, and Moyes has got us to a level that I never thought was going to be possible, to be honest. So that's my impassioned defense of David Moyes.
Yeah, and what a defense it was. I couldn't agree more, Dave, to be honest. And we do, we air our own views on the podcast, me and James, but we're all, we always invite and encourage other people to put their views across on all range of topics. Me and Jones, you'll go head to head on Said Benrahma until the end of our days, I think. And if you never
look, Benrahma's great. If only he could put a ball in the box. There's no end product with him. Is my problem.
Yeah, honestly, Dave, people are going to think I've got you on just to echo everything I think about West Ham, David Moyes and Said Benrahma. But yeah, there's exactly the same. And I think we'll see a bit less of him as the season goes on in the starting 11, which is music to my ears. But I just find we're in Europe for the third season running. When, in recent years, I've been supporting West Ham as a match goer, as in week out, since I was 9. Yeah. That's just over 20 years that is now. And most of it, Dave, has been dross. It's been rubbish. Yeah. The vast majority. We've had a couple of flash in the pan good seasons. Like one on Redknapp was the earliest sort of memories I have vaguely. Paolo Di Canio, I used to love watching him, of course. And then Pardew, we were good for a bit. We had one good season under Roda. And then obviously the Bilic one, which you've mentioned already. other than that, it's been grim. It's been Sam Allardyce, rubbish. Avram Grant, rubbish. Zola, rubbish. Like,
and we've been in the Championship for a fair bit of that as well.
Yeah,
you know, and the style of football in the Championship was so awful. I mean,
Allardyce,
it's enough to make you depressed, isn't it?
Exactly. And now we're watching our team play in Europe for the 3rd season running. We're playing Olympiacos in a couple of weeks. Like, how exciting is that? And it's all down to David Moyes. And I just find it so confusing and short-sighted. And I just don't get it. It just shows, I think, a bit of a lack of understanding of how football works. It's the same with Southgate in England as well. I always find these managers become victims of their own success. And it's like, well, how much better can it possibly be? There's been so much improvement. You know, we tried it with Pellegrini and it didn't work. He'd won the Premier League before. He was that, you know, sort of glamorous manager. David Moyes is producing and giving us a West Ham that I'm so grateful for, and I haven't seen the vast majority of my life. And I just don't understand where fans come at it from, to be quite honest.
I think from what I've observed, I might be wrong, but I think there's a lot of older fans who are kind of stuck in a mythical world where West Ham played this, you know, attacking football and produced all the players through the academy, and you know, everyone was West Ham through and through. That's not football anymore. No. Players leave, you know. And I was as gutted as anybody about Declan Rice, and I was also arguing online that, you know, I didn't see why I had to, you know, stick up for him because he wanted to move to Arsenal. You know, I want to go, okay, he's not a legend then. The legends stay at the club, and okay, you have to accept that that's not going to happen. So the next best thing was he leaves. Doesn't do great at Arsenal. Well, actually, he's not had a bad start, to be fair. But then we rebuild our team and we come back even better. So that's the only area that I'll give him a bit of cut him a bit of slack, because he's gone to one of our London rivals, you know. And I don't see why I should go, oh, thank you, Declan, you did so great for us. Yeah, I'll always remember that cup win, but to be a legend, you got to stay at West Ham. I'm sorry, you have to.
I sort of agree. I mean, I still think Carlos Tevez is a legend. He played for us for about 6 months. So I do think the Arsenal one was just a weird move. But I think it's the only one he could make. I think if Man City have got Rodri's the only player who's better in that position than Declan Rice is in the world, pretty much. And I think if Chelsea weren't such a basket case, he would have gone there. So, and then outside of that, Man United, just, you can see the disaster they're in. They just splashed a load of money on Casemiro. I think he'll talk about Arsenal and the project and all this, but I think the reality is it was the only option he had. He knew he had to leave West Ham. It was the right time to go, and we look better without him, don't we? As Souček's back to his old self again. Alvarez has come in, who's great, and it's a David Moyes team again, rather than like more pulling the strings rather than Declan Rice. But
by the way, sorry to interrupt you, a word about James Ward-Prowse as well, because he's been unbelievable.
Yeah,
you know, his corners are just like, they're on the money every single time.
They are, aren't they?
And he's got it in his locker to score from free kicks as well. So I think he's been a fantastic signing for us.
You'll be delighted to hear, Dave, that I, you know, took the somewhat unwise move, as it's proved to be, of declaring with a fair amount of gusto and confidence that James Ward-Prowse is a bad signing. He's not going to fit into that team. You know, he's a bit of a one-trick pony with the set pieces. He'll get overrun in open play. He's not a like-for-like Declan Rice replacement. Bad decision. I've never had as much egg on my face in my entire life.
I didn't know that was your view on him.
Oh, it was, hilarious. But he's been a sensation, isn't he? Like, amazing, not just set pieces, which are incredible, but don't you think from open play as well? He's just
I think he's, you know, watching him playing, especially against Chelsea, he was really good in, like, you know, stopping them from progressing. And I mean, I thought they were a bit unlucky against us, Chelsea, actually. If that
they could have won that game.
If that Nicholas Jackson could hit a barn door with a banjo, I think they would have beaten us. But you know, in those games that we've won, I think he's been amazing. and Alvarez as well. You know, Alvarez has been really good at like breaking up the play, but all of them can play as well. You know, he's not just a stopper, Alvarez. He's a really good passer of the ball as well. And JWP has got the set pieces, and as you said, he's great from open play as well. So, and I thought our midfield looked strong against Liverpool. So I think we're well set there.
Yeah, a wonderful bit of positivity even injected into the pod, Dave. Absolutely love it. JWP though, if you're starting abbreviating his name, next time I see you, you'll have a tattoo, won't you?
Yeah. Across my chest. I wasn't going to get packets up. It'll probably leave, won't he?
Exactly. Look, Dave, we've got a couple more questions for you before we let you go. It's been absolutely brilliant having you on. I love talking to you anyway, but really delighted you've come on the podcast and shared your views and thoughts on West Ham with the listeners. Just a bit about your career as well before I open the floor to you for the open forum question, where you get to a bit like Speaker's Corner or the thing they do in Trafalgar Square with the empty podium. Where you get a couple of minutes, or as long as you like, to just put across any West Ham point you like. It can be good or bad, a take that no one's really aware of, or something you just feel particularly passionate about. But before we get to that, I'll sort of ask you a bit about your career. Now, I'll kick this off with a little bit of an anecdote. I believe it was Frankfurt. Me, you, and my dad went for something to eat. And we just sat there, and a load of West Ham fans in and about, and I think you got stopped and asked for 3 or 4 photos. All of them, I think, recognise you as Jay's dad from the Inbetweeners. Is that sort of you find yourself most recognised because of that role, and what's that like? What obviously, you know, I just wonder what that's like, sort of day to day, and to sort of deal with all that stuff.
Well, to be absolutely honest with you, I'm delighted. You know, I mean, to me, it's an example of success. You know, and as an actor, it's a bloody hard game, and you know, you're famous for 5 minutes. So the fact it's gone on for this long, not just with the Inbetweeners, but The Office. But although I do get recognised more from the Inbetweeners, I've never had a second where I've thought, oh, I'm sick of this, because everyone is always so friendly, you know, so happy to see me. And I bumped into a mate of mine who's actually a Liverpool fan, who's coming to watch I can't remember what game it was now, but I met up with him. I used to play football with him. Really good footballer, this guy. Chris Rowe, his name is. So I met up with him, and he said, oh, so how's things going? And I said, yeah, you know, I was kind of moaning a bit about not having enough acting work. And then there were a couple of other old mates who we used to play with who came along and said, oh, I literally hadn't seen these guys in about 20 years. And then as we're walking to the ground, I got swamped by a load of West Ham fans going, oh, my God, it's Jay's dad from the Inbetweeners. You were my childhood. You were my childhood. And I turned around, and then, you know, we had all the selfies and the videos and all that where I have to go, you got like a McDonald's chip and all that. And I turned around at Chris, and he was like, he was like mouth opened. He had no idea that was the level of recognition that I would get from the stuff. And so I just feel lucky. You know, I've been in 2 of the biggest comedy shows of all time, and I just feel lucky, mate. You know, they're never rude to me. You know, I know some actors get it in a different way, and if you're playing a horrible character, you often, you know, people have trouble, you know, differentiating between fantasy and reality. But all I've ever had is good comments, people going, you're a legend, mate, you're a legend. You know, and as you alluded to earlier, I did a video at West Ham for the Tom Skinner thing, you know, for the Legends tournament. And everyone was slagging off that video because at the time we were fighting relegation. But they were all going, well, I'm glad you got Jay's dad in there. So I even came out of that, you know, looking pretty good. So you know, it happens a lot at West Ham, less now because I look older. You know, frankly, I'm surprised anybody recognises me because I look very different now to how I did. I was a lot fatter back then as well, and I had hair.
Yeah, other than that,
yeah, other than that, But I suppose it's my voice actually. But mate, it's a pleasure. You know, what a pleasure to get recognition for something you do. It's never really translated into financial well-being, my career. So, you know, when I'm down in the dumps and I'm not getting any work and I'm wondering how I'm going to pay the mortgage, someone comes up and asks for a selfie, and it makes my day. You know.
Yeah. You want to start charging a tenner, mate?
Well, I do. I'm on something called Cameo.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. So you can go on Cameo and you can ask for a video. But obviously, if I see people in the street, I'm not going to go, no, go on Cameo.
Give us a tenner. Yeah.
That'd be horrible to do that. But no, it makes my day, mate. You know, I feel really privileged to be in that position.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the thing is, like I say, I experienced that firsthand with you on a couple of occasions now. People saying you're a legend. That's obviously your professional work. They don't know, as I do, that you actually are a legend in person as well, which obviously helps. But what, you know, I sort of find with these things, and you must get it. You in your career done countless interviews and radio shows and podcasts, no doubt. And I think often you see you know, from an interviewer, them sort of trying to find a creative way of basically saying, you know, especially with The Office and The Inbetweeners as well, iconic comedy programs, they try and find creative ways of saying, what's it like being in The Office, or what was it like being in The Inbetweeners? So rather than do anything clever, perhaps I'm just not as clever as them. What is it like being in The Office? Did you meet Ricky Gervais? And how does it feel now? You know, like you say with The Inbetweeners, you mentioned what it's like when people come up to you, but when you look back on your life as you do in your career, I can only imagine. But you must be full of pride. It must be amazing experiences to look back on.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember meeting Ricky vividly for the audition, and I actually originally auditioned for Finchy.
Right.
And I think I went in and met Rachel Freck, who's a casting director on it, did a video for Finchy, and then I got recalled. I wasn't aware what the part was that I was being recalled for, but he called me in and I sat across the table and they got me to read for Taffy then. And I remember thinking, I'm a little bit disappointed because Finchy was a really good part, but I really liked Ricky, and I was talking to him about his chat show. He had this chat show on at the time, and his first guest was Michael Winner. And I remember having a laugh with him because I did a film with Michael Winner called Dirty Weekend back in, I don't know, in the 80s, whenever it was. And it was my first ever film, and I got shouted at for 3 hours. So I told Ricky about this situation, and I said, he's lucky I didn't chin him. I said, because if he did, if he was still alive and he did it to me now, I probably would. And he laughed so much. And then the next thing I knew, I got this part as Taffy. And then we go in, and the first scene I did was the warehouse scene where it was my dog shagging his dog, you know, and he was so brilliant, and he was in that scene, and what I remember about him is his listening skills, because I thought, I don't know who this guy is, you know, as far as I know, he's a comedian. I don't know whether he can act. And then I watched back what we did when it came out, and I thought, that guy is really clever. Yeah, that guy is really clever. But I did have a line in it that he gave to one of the extras. And the line was, what she needs is a good shagging, when Sterling Gallagher comes down. And I remember having a kind of mock argument with him going, you can't give my line to him. That's my line. I want to say that. And he's going, no, it'll be brilliant. If he says it, it'll be brilliant. And I remember thinking, you can't go around giving actors lines to extras, you know. So I was a bit grumpy in those days. I wasn't as, you know, because in your 30s, you're really ambitious, aren't you? You just you really want to make your way in your career. But I had no idea what that was going to turn into, The Office. I mean, it was, and the same with the Inbetweeners, you know. You don't know that they're going to become these amazing, iconic shows. You just got no idea.
No, of course.
I'm just turning up and doing an acting gig, you know. So lucky, not to be in one, but to be in two of them, you know.
I mean, Ricky Gervais is... he's an absolute genius. You know, I think he can be a little bit Marmite to some people. I think lots of people don't get him, but I think his body of work is, well, I think it doesn't. No one can compare to that. I don't think. You know, you hear sort of and see the stand-up comedians these days who are doing some good stuff and are funny. But what Ricky's done, everything just has been a hit, basically, isn't it? Even some of the lesser known things, I think, like Derek. He just keeps churning them out. Even Afterlife, he gets such widespread plaudits for those sort of things.
And the
could you tell? Go on.
Sorry,
no, go on. Go on.
The characters are so unusual in it, like the postman in Afterlife.
Yeah,
played by,
Joe Wilkinson.
Joe Wilkinson. Yeah, I used to go running with him on Hove Beachfront. Yeah. He's a really fast 5K runner. He can run 5K in 20 minutes. And there was me lagging.
His podcast is my favourite podcast.
I haven't heard it. I've got to listen to it.
Yeah, Chatterbix is called. He does it with David Earl, who's also in.
David Earl's brilliant. He was in Afterlife as what was that character he played? The horrible guy with a beard, wasn't it? Yeah.
The scruffy bloke, which is sort of what he always plays.
Yeah, and then there was Paul Kay as the worst therapist you could ever encounter. So what I love, I think Ricky's a little bit influenced by Mike Leigh, the film director, because a lot of Mike Leigh's characters are really caricatured and seem larger than life and you know, idiosyncratic and kind of unusual. And that's why I think he's so clever, because he harnesses that comedy of embarrassment. That's his shtick. And I don't know anyone else who can go over to Hollywood, insult everybody, and be asked to come back time after time after time and not get cancelled, you know.
Yeah, I know, absolute genius. It's really interesting you say that. So obviously the Inbetweeners was a little bit further on in your career, and you'd sort of suggest that's what you get most recognised for now, but you've done loads of stuff beyond that. It's quite intriguing. Could you tell then, like with Ricky's, you said you don't know these are going to go on to become big hits. Could you tell with Ricky, because I know he was about before, but it was pretty much the thing that properly launched him into making everyone sit up and take proper notice. Could you tell he had that level of sort of genius then, or is it just, do you come across lots of people like that?
No, it's not that I come across lots of people like that. I actually thought Stephen Merchant, was the brains behind the operation, and I'd heard whispers from other people saying, yeah, I think Stephen's really the kind of, you know, the real force behind this. And, you know, it turns out it's Ricky who was. So I think part of that is because he's so modest, you know, and I suppose, you know, Stephen seems a bit more intellectual than Ricky is. So I think there's a lot of kind of like unspoken prejudice going on there. You know, Ricky can't possibly be the brains. He looks too weird. He's having too much fun doing it. Yeah. You know, but it turns out it's all him. You know, I mean, I'm sure Stephen helped with the writing of it and was a major influence, but on the work. But you can't really tell. He's so unassuming. You know, I just thought he was some bloke who'd got lucky and managed to get this sitcom off the ground. But I have to say, I'm not particularly good at judging what's going to be a hit or not. You know, half the time I turn up, I do stuff. You just can't really tell until it's shown. You know, maybe you can get a feel if something's got a good atmosphere on set. You know, you can sometimes tell if something's not going to work, you know, because there's a kind of bad atmosphere. But I have to say, with The Office and The Inbetweeners, I could not have predicted what phenomenons both of those things were going to become, you know.
Have you got any just before we move back onto West Ham for the last sort of bit of the interview, have you got any particular sort of memories, stories or funnies from The Inbetweeners or The Office that sort of stick in your mind?
Well, I'll tell you this story. That day when we filmed the toilet scene where I'm peeing on Will and splashing him and all of that, it's meant to be the same episode as the caravan scene. It's called the Caravan Club. That day was a freezing cold day. We were filming it somewhere near Finsbury Park. So I turn up and I'm having to basically be half naked on a freezing cold day in these toilets. And I was going hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, in between takes, warming up, going cold again. And then I got in my car. I don't normally drive myself to set, but this was literally around the corner somewhere near Arsenal. Which I have to say, I live in North London as well. Not because I'm a closet Arsenal fan, by the way.
Tottenham fan, Arsenal fan.
Just being a North Londoner in Stevenage, I sort of, you know, I've always lived in this area, but still an ardent West Ham fan. Anyway, so driving back, I was driving up Holloway Road, and Arsenal were playing at home. So a load of their fans were crossing the road, and I remember there was this truck right in front of me, and I momentarily dozed off at the wheel and ploughed straight into the back of this truck. So my bumper went over their tow bar. 4 big burly geezers got out of the car, and I thought, I'm dead. They looked at me and they went, "You all right?" I went, "Yeah, I just got distracted by the Arsenal supporters." And all 4 of them lifted the car up off their tow bar, got back in the car and drove on. So I blamed Arsenal supporters for falling asleep. And I mentioned it to people at the Inbetweeners. They went, "Right, you are never driving yourself ever again," because that could have been really dangerous.
Yeah.
But I momentarily dozed off.
Do you still speak to, you know, Ricky or any of the Inbetweeners lads, or does it not really work like that?
No, if I bump into people, I've seen Ricky walking around Hampstead, but it was so long ago now. You know, I don't know. I've always been a bit shy to go up to people and go, "Hello, mate," and I probably should do. Really, I'm quite good friends with Tony Way, who was the big guy in Afterlife, and he's a West Ham supporter as well, by the way. He's got a season ticket. And he said to me, "Oh, I'm working with Ricky. Shall I say hello to him for you?" And I said, "Yeah, if he remembers me." So he came back. He went, "Of course he remembers you. You know, you had that iconic line, you know, the from the Christmas episode, the beans and muff line. Do you know that one?" Yeah. Just, you know, so that's the line that everyone remembers, where I'm smoking around the pregnant woman. You know, going, "Just could you let some useless tosser blow his beans up your muff?" So
you wonder, don't you, if a lot of those shows would just sort of get through the net these days in the society we live in? Do you think they'd have any legs as much these days, or do you think they get shut down before they got anywhere near the screens?
Well, look, I have seen a meme from the show featuring me when I say to them when they leave the caravan club. Am I allowed to say this on?
Yeah. I know the one you mean. Yeah.
So the line is, "Try not to rape anyone on the way out." So I have seen that line, and the truth of the matter is, I remember saying that at the time and feeling distinctly uncomfortable about saying that line, because I was thinking, "Oh, this is a bit strong, and I don't really like making gags about this." But and I did mention it to Ian and Damon, who are the writers, and said, "I'm not sure about saying this." And they went, "Yeah, but it's Terry saying it. It's not you. It's Terry."
Yeah, of course.
You know, he's just trying to be funny. So that line has come back to haunt me. I've seen it came to me on National Women's Day that the meme was there, and also for the Man United players, Ten Hag's last words to the Man United players. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a bit near the knuckle. And I actually did an interview with The Sun fairly recently, because it was the 15th anniversary of the of the Inbetweeners. And I thought they were going to stitch me up and mention that, and he didn't, thank God.
Right,
But I did say to him, there are, you know, on Cameo, if they ask me to repeat that line, I won't do it.
No, quite.
But I think there are certain things about that show that maybe would be controversial, but I guess you've got to put all comedy in context, haven't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know.
Well, look, Dave, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on the show. Just one last little one, as I mentioned it earlier on. I need to think of a bit of more of a catchier name for it, but it's like an open forum, speakers corner style thing, where we give our Claret Blue View guests the floor, and they can put across anything they like. So far, Tom Rennie from Talk Sport, he launched a passionate defence of the London Stadium, saying it's nowhere near as bad. We've had people defend Moyes, say Moyes out, talk about kits, anything at all, interesting takes. Whatever it is you often think about West Ham, the floor is yours for as long as you like, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, well, I really agree with that defence of the London Stadium. As much as I love the Bowling Ground, I'm sorry, the London Stadium is on a different planet. And also, I know that we're further away from the pitch at the London Stadium, but you know, we would never get 62,000 fans we get every week. We wouldn't, you know, I mean, Upton Park would never have been expanded to accommodate that many people. I understand the affection for the old ground, but I agree with that. I think the London Stadium is a massive, massive improvement on where we were. Now, that's not what I want to make. I want to make my impassioned defense of David Moyes, because all through the summer, even after we won the Conference League, West Ham fans were going, oh, it's the third tier European trophy. I'm like, hang on, that's what Arsenal fans are mocking us about. That's what all the other bloody London clubs are having a go at us about. We won a European trophy, which is basically a replacement for the Cup Winners' Cup, isn't it? It's on a par for that. Since David Moyes has been our manager, we, and he came in to save us from relegation. No one could have predicted that we'd be in Europe 3 years running, playing the kind of football that, people would say isn't attacking, but we are one of the best counter-attacking teams in the Premier League. We've now got Kudus coming in. We've got Paquetá still. We've got Alvarez. Even Dinos. What's his real name? Mavropanos.
Yeah,
Everyone says Dinos now. Even him coming in, he looked fantastic against the Serbian team. So, cut David Moyes some slack. When we won in Alkmaar, after we nearly got beaten up by the fans, but that's another story. When we won in Alkmaar, David Moyes was walking across from where the main group of West Ham supporters to where I was sitting in the friends and family section. And we're all singing, we've got David Moyes, he knows just what we need. That song that we sang to him in Europe. And he looked so chuffed, so happy. That man deserves a medal, let alone not just backing and support. He deserves a medal for what he's done. Well, he did get a medal. We got the Conference League medal, and okay, we are sitting back against a lot of teams, and that is one thing I would like to see evolve. And as I said earlier, my only criticism is we got to get a decent striker in. Now, it's not through want of trying. I know we've been linked with just about every striker, and there is a dearth of top quality strikers. And if they're that good, then one of the top teams are going to pick them up and stockpile them, like Man City have done with Alvarez and Haaland. They don't need Alvarez. They've got Haaland. Someone like him would be great at West Ham. So that's the only missing thing, is an out-and-out quality number 9. The rest of that team is fantastic. And, I know Agard has made a few rickets. I rate him. He's good going forward. He will learn. It's still early days for him in the Prem. I think Emerson's been great, taken over from Cresswell. Soufal, he's had a couple of good games, but he can be a bit hit and miss, Soufal. So maybe we need a better right back. But I just think everybody's got to get behind Moisey. And this Moyes ball, like it's some kind of criticism, that should actually be a positive thing. Yeah, we're playing because he stamped his way of playing on the team. And it's been successful, and people go, oh, we nearly got relegated last season. No, we didn't. We were 6 points clear and had a superior goal difference. That's not nearly getting relegated. Yeah, we were in the bottom 3, I think, up until Christmas. And then after that, we were fine. So leave David Moyes alone. He's done a great job. He knows just what we need, doesn't he, Will?
He does. Dave Schaal, absolutely sensational stuff. I've really, really enjoyed having this chat. We really appreciate you coming on. I say loads of you will know Dave, of course, from as Jay's dad from the Inbetweeners or the Office, or his really impressive back catalogue of work. I'm fortunate enough to know him now as an absolutely outstanding bloke, a ardent even Hammers fan, and never an evening will be better spent, I don't think, than a few beers in the bars of Seville after a West Ham European game. I hope to see you again soon, Dave, for some more of that. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Just quickly, let everyone know what you got going on at the moment. I know you got a couple of films coming out soon. Let everyone know what they're up to, what you're up to, what you got coming out, and where they can find you if they want to follow you on stuff.
Great. So I've got a film called Bermondsey Tales, which I which I think is coming out very soon. That is a gangster film. It actually features Tom Skinner as well, who was in that West Ham video I did. But it's got Alan Ford, Michael Head, Maisie Smith, who recently left EastEnders, It's got Gary Webster, Vaz Blackwood, who was in Lockstock, Frank Harper, who's in Lockstock. It's got a whole host of, you know, London-based talent, actually. And it's going to be a great film. It's going to be a bit like Lockstock, I think. It's directed by Michael Head, who's also the lead actor in it. Linda Robson's in it as well. So I think that is going to do very well at the box office. You can follow me on Instagram. I am the real David Schaal on Instagram. So yeah, and I'm also on X, as it's now called, at David C. Schaal. But I use Instagram more than that, really. So there you
go. And people can, sorry, I think I accidentally muted my mic then. And people can get you on Cameo as well.
Yeah, on Cameo. If you want a video and me insulting you, basically, go on Cameo. You have to pay for it, unfortunately, but I will insult you to your heart's content.
Happy days. Look, Dave Schaal, acting sensation, all-round good guy and West Ham fan, most importantly, of course. Thanks so much for joining us for the first time ever on the We Are West Ham podcast. You'll have plenty more from me and Jonesy next up, but we hope you've enjoyed once more the Claret and Blue View with me, Will Pugh.